Abortion happens every day. Millions of people around the world have an abortion each year, but the majority of those people will never talk about their abortion experiences. What if millions of people broke their silence and told the truth about their lives and their choices? This is Melissa Madera in Montreal, Canada, and you're listening to the Abortion Diary podcast. These are the stories we share.
Jesus, where do I begin? I guess I'll start with February of 2013. I went to see my family in Texas, and I just wasn't feeling well the entire week, and I thought I was like coming down with something. And I remember now that my mom looked at me and she says, "Are you pregnant?" And I looked at her, I was like, "No, Mom, I'm spotting. Like, there's no way. I'm just waiting for my period." But I had an aversion to everything. I didn't want to eat anything. It was horrible. So my husband at the time and I were there together, and then we come back to New York. And at that point, I just go and I get a pregnancy test. And I remember telling him I have to go get a pregnancy test. So I go, I get this pregnancy test, and I take it. I was like, what are we going to do? And I remember being in the bed with him and looking at him and saying, we're not ready for a baby. This is, we were in a very tumultuous relationship. At that time, I was beginning, actually, it was the end of my second year as a principal. And it was just not the right time. He, in my opinion, is an alcoholic. I don't know if you get diagnosed for that, but he had a problem with alcohol. So my life when I was with him was come here, right? Wake up early at 5:30, 6 o'clock, come to work, go home. He wouldn't be home because he was a bartender. And then at around 4:30, 5 o'clock, he would come home just wasted. I mean, wasted, like college freshman. I don't know how to handle my liquor. Wasted. And so it was just this perpetual cycle of me being upset with him and then coming to work and being equally stressed out. I just had no peace. And then I was pregnant. So he looked at me and he like legit wanted to keep this kid. And I looked at him like, for real? And for a moment, I was like, wow, like we can do this. But then he just kept getting drunk that week. And I told him, I need to make a decision about this because I don't think that we're in the right frame of mind. I'm not doing well mentally. I was suffering from depression and anxiety at the time, and our relationship was not okay, and I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be a mom. I wasn't ready for the additional responsibility, and I think part of it has to do with him being a grown-up child, like being a man-child. I don't know what the right word is, but I think that's a pretty good descriptor, man-child. Who wants to be with a man-child? So I did like a pros and cons list. It was like the most logical, ridiculous decision that I was trying to make for myself. And I think the part that was the hardest for me was I was married. And in my mind, it's like I went a whole life avoiding pregnancy, right? Like birth control, condoms, safe sex, all of that. And to be pregnant while I was married, I just thought it was going to be a different situation. I just thought I'd be ecstatic and, whatever, but I wasn't. And one thing that I did not have was an instinct to immediately say, I'm keeping the baby, right? Like, I remember thinking, what would I bring this child into? is he going to be a participatory father? And do I really want to raise this kid on my own? Because I know that I would either my options were I would raise him on my own, or I would remain married to this man, or perhaps get divorced, but I would always be the bad guy. I mean, I'm a school principal, so there's something about my personality that lends itself to structure and discipline and things of that nature. And my my ex-husband is the antithesis to that, right? He's free-spirited, and if it was up to him, we would have been in a polyamorous relationship. And, you know, it's just like, oh, I'll never, whatever the kid wants, like just unrealistic expectations about what it means to be a person in this world, right? So what ends up happening is I tell him, you have a week to get your act together. And after that time, I will make a decision. I was like, I need you to not be drunk. I need you to be more supportive because this is really hard. I was sick. I you know, women talk about morning sickness. I had all day sickness. Like, I had this taste in my mouth, this like metallic taste that I can't forget. I remember I'm a big lady, and I was even bigger. Like, I immediately ballooned. And what was weird was that I wasn't eating, so I didn't understand, like, why am I gaining so much weight? I'm not eating anything. And so I just wasn't feeling good. And then it was a Thursday, and he shows up, and he's just like drunk, and like, you can't destroy our baby. This is meant to be, and this and that. And I was just like, you are the most selfish man right now. I just fell asleep 2 hours ago. I'm pregnant. I asked you not to come home drunk. A very simple request. I didn't ask you to come home earlier. I didn't ask you to quit your job. I asked you to not be drunk. And you couldn't do that? So he like falls on the floor. I mean, his episodes were pretty epic. I mean, he would take a knife into the bathtub and insinuate some things, and I got close to calling the hospital on him once, and he never was physically abusive, but as I reflect, he was emotionally manipulative. I mean, I'm very wary of using the word emotional abuse because I'm not exactly sure what that means, but very much about himself. And I grew into this pattern in our relationship where I wanted to make sure he was happy, but that wasn't reciprocated. It was always about him being happy, and he never saw that. So he always operated under like me. You know, he would say things like, I'm going to be such a good father. I'm going to take my baby everywhere. And that was a lot of pressure for me, because all I could think about was the unit, right? Like the family unit of bringing in a kid and me being the only one working, and how this child would be socialized with an alcoholic father and a principal as a mother. And that is just a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. So then that Saturday, I told him later that day on Thursday, I was like, I'm going to go through with it. I'm going to have the abortion. And he was like, why? And I was like, because I asked you to do this and you couldn't do it. And he was like, well, I'm not going with you. I don't support your decision. I can't believe you. You're so selfish. And so he just got drunk the rest of the week. And just every day, just got drunk. So then the morning came, and I looked at him and I was like, you're not coming with me? And he was like, no. So Saturday morning comes. I I remember I told my assistant principal about it. And he was like, "Are you sure? Are you okay? Like, do you need someone to come with you?" And I said, "No. My husband should really be the one that comes with me, and he's not. So I'm going to go by myself." And I didn't think to ask any of my girlfriends. I don't know why. I just didn't think to do that. I felt, for whatever reason, why I needed to do it on my own. I don't even know. But I leave. I go to the place. I'm one of the oldest people in the room. And that for me was hard. Like stepping into the clinic, the double paneled windows. Because before that, I had reached out to my medical doctor and I asked her if she performed abortions, and she said no, but I should go to Planned Parenthood. So I went to Planned Parenthood, and I get there, I sign all the documents. They call me in, they do the ultrasound, they ask me if I want to see the picture. I say no, because if I would have seen the picture, I'd have a 3-year-old baby right now. And I even like stopped myself from peeking because I really wanted to peek. I really wanted to see it, but I just knew that if I would have seen the picture, I would have kept it. And so they sit me down with the therapist and they asked me if I was ready to go through with it. And then I expressed my doubts because I don't think that when we make these decisions, I don't know. I'm speaking for myself. I wasn't 100% sure. Like, I don't know if women are ever 100% sure. I mean, that's not my reality to tell, but I imagine if anyone had a similar experience, that there's a moment where they could have gone either way. And for me, I had so many of those moments leading up to the actual event, you know? And I think that had my husband gone with me, I would have had the baby. And I told her, like, you know, my husband and I are having a lot of problems. I'm not okay. You know, I don't think that I would be a good mother right now. And I think it's really important to bring children into a healthy, loving relationship, right? Both, you know, the parents as a unit, a loving unit, and healthy parents, like individually, mentally, right? I think that's so key because there's already so much crap in the world. You don't want to put kids in a situation where they're going to be dealing with that challenge. And I'm a product of a one-night stand, so I don't know my father. And I definitely did not want to be in a situation where I was a single mother, especially because I'm a principal. Like, my lifestyle does not lend itself to being a single mother. It just does not. And so going back to that day, I therapist says, come back another day. You're not ready. So then I go outside. I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, I text people, I think I text my girlfriends, I text my AP. They're like, are you okay? Do you need help? Like, what do you need? You can do it next week. And I said, if I don't do this today, I'm not going to do it. And I ended up telling the social worker, no, I'm going to go through with it. So then the nurse asked me if I wanted an aspiration or if I wanted the pill. And she's like, well, the pill is a longer process. You know, you have to take the pill now, and then, you know, you have to take another pill later, and there's no guarantee. And I was just like, this is such a mortifying experience for me. I do not want to leave here being pregnant. Like, there was something about needing the definitive I am or I'm not that led me to have the they call it the aspiration, right? Led me to have that. And I remember like getting up on those stirrups, and that was the most painful thing I've ever gone through in my life, both emotionally and physically. Like, this is going to sound so bizarre, but I felt the moment when whatever was inside me died. Like, I felt it. And I can't describe what that feeling was. It just was so finite. It was so like, oh my God. And it was such an intense feeling that I just was devastated immediately, like flooded with grief and despair. I could not stop crying. And I remember the doctor like asking me, "Are you okay?" And I remember staring at the ceiling of like clouds, like, and thinking, this is so fucked up. Like, I don't want to be staring at a pretend happy ceiling right now. This is like not okay to be. And I just could not control myself. I just could not control the feelings, the emotions that came with what I had just decided to do. And on that same day, they had asked me before if I wanted to get on birth control or whatever, and they gave me the IUD option, and I took it. So I got an IUD that day, and mind you, I'm going through all of this by myself. I drove myself there. I am in this room by myself, devastated. And I shouldn't have been. I should have been with my husband. I should have been with my friends. I should have been with someone. But I hope that it just gained some insight into where my frame of mind was. That I was so in myself that I couldn't request help. I didn't feel I could deserve the help. You know, and I think that was really, like, reflecting on it, I think that was really sad, because that was a devastating experience for me. And I don't know why it was devastating. I don't know if it's because I felt the fetus die. I don't know if it's because, or the embryo rather. I don't know if it's because I knew that was the end of my marriage and it was a foreshadowing of what was to come. I don't know if it's because I was alone. I don't know if it was a combination of those things. I remember going to a fortune teller, and she was saying, "Oh, there's a girl who's gonna be your mother, your daughter." And she told me this in like January, and I ended up getting pregnant in April. And I don't believe in this crap, but my girlfriend like is gung ho, and she's like, "Come with me," and I'm like, "All right," and we go, and she's like, "You're gonna be a mom," and I'm like, "What? No." And then I get pregnant, and I'm like, this mother effer, like, what the hell? I got pregnant. So, like, it just was horrible. And I didn't tell my mom that I was going through with it. So, I remember what I was wearing. I was wearing, like, these Old Navy yoga pants. And I remember feeling like everything hurt. I remember my legs hurt. I remember like my body hurt, and I remember going to my car and wishing that I didn't have to drive. And I go inside my car and I just start crying and crying and crying, and I must have just stayed there crying for like 30 minutes because I couldn't get myself together. Like, I'd managed to get myself together long enough to fool the social workers that I was okay, walk out of the clinic, get to my car, and then I'm devastated again. And of course they give you like cards like, "Come see us, blah 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 blah." But I was seeing a therapist at the time, and I told her what I was going through, and she was just like, "What are you gonna do?" You know how therapists do. They are very unbiased. And oh my God, that was just awful. So I ended up getting home, and I remember we lived on a third floor walk up. I remember like every single step being excruciating. I remember the 10 minutes it took for me to find parking that day being the longest 10 minutes of my life, because all I wanted to do was crawl in bed and cry. And so I finally get up the steps. I go into my bed. My husband is still asleep. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. He's still asleep. I crawl into bed, and he simply turns to me and says, "Did you do it?" And I, without being able to say anything else, say yes. He turns right back around. And then I just start crying and crying and crying. And he tried to console me, but he was really angry. And he said, "You shouldn't have done this. You wouldn't be going through this right now." It's all a blur. Like, all I can remember what I was feeling, because it was like the first time in our relationship where I didn't, like, I stood my ground and I was like, no, like, I already pay all the bills. You're already like drunk all the time. You're already like, you didn't go to college like you promised at the beginning of our relationship. You're a freaking bartender who gets drunk every night. You're not a 17-year-old. You're not an 18-year-old living with mommy. You're a man who's supposed to be a partner, and you are not that. And all of those things were going through my head, and that was it. And then that eventually led to my divorce. Like, my marriage up until that point was already on the rocks, and then it just got worse. He came home later. He came home drunker, and then he started saying things like, "You should have never you should have never had the abortion." Or I remember he made me feel guilty. He's like, "This is the third kid I lose to an abortion." And I was just like, whoa. I don't know what to say to you right now, but that's not cool. And I remember just from that moment on, I just felt more empowered, because I wasn't going to allow myself to be tied to this man for the rest of my life, because I already felt like we would end up being divorced. And I remember one of the last arguments we had, he was like, "You don't love me anymore. You're not attracted to me anymore. You this, you that, you that." And I was like, you know what? You need to like take out the word you and put the word I, and all those feelings, you're transferring them to me. And I don't know if it's because you don't forgive me, you haven't forgiven me for the abortion, or if you think that it's my fault that our relationship is like that or like this. But whatever it is, you treating me like this is not okay. So I'm wondering now, nothing. I don't wonder anything. I see the abortion as something that had to happen. Do I want to have another abortion? No. I don't ever want to go through that feeling again.
Have you shared this with your family at all?
I shared it with my mom, and my mom was like, I support you. But I told her after I did it. She asked me the questions that any mom would ask. Did you go by yourself? Are you okay? Like, how are you feeling? And she was concerned. Like, she wasn't sad. She understood, which I really, really appreciate. Like, she really understood. There's some times where I feel like a tinge of regret, but regret not because I had an abortion, regret because I remained in that marriage and got pregnant for as long as I did. And that's the regret. It's not, I don't know if I'm being clear. Like, it's like, I feel like the The pregnancy was an outcome of the context, right? You're married, you have sex, you have unprotected sex generally. And that was who we were, right? We trusted each other. I trusted that I was his only partner. He was my only partner, and we got pregnant. So in my mind, it was a logical consequence to whatever condition we were in. So I don't regret the cause or the effect. I regret the effect. I regret the cause. I regret remaining in the marriage for as long as I did and having to have gone through this, because I feel like had I not been in this situation, I would not have gotten pregnant, and I would not have had to have endured that pain.
During the time that you were going through this process, you were able to confide in your assistant principal and some friends. Have you been able to share this more openly since the abortion?
Not really. I mean, I think I shared this with a girlfriend, and I think I don't remember if I cried or not, but I remember it being really painful to share. And right now, as I was describing sitting in the stirrups, I felt my eyes welling up, and I felt that the emotion, because I haven't really talked about what it felt like to actually be in the room with 4 women who are like, it's gonna be okay, and just feeling like such a fool. I'm 34 years old, I'm married, I have a job, I can afford this kid, there's no reason. I make 6 figures, I can afford this kid. And so I guess that narrative kept running through my mind. And so I was ashamed because of that, because I was like, I'm not an 18-year-old girl who's got her life ahead of her and is trying to figure it out and is going to be stumped by, the responsibility, right? I never like to say the kid, because it's not the kid, it's the responsibility that comes with the kid, right? That was not my situation. My situation was the complete opposite. It was here's a female who's got her shit together and who makes good money. She can handle this, but when I think about that, I haven't been able to be as open about it. And I think because I don't really like to talk about the past too much. I like to forget it, to bury it, and let it just stay in the cemetery of memories. But I guess it was important to me to share because I was married. I'm not. And if I wasn't able to have an abortion, I don't know what I would have done with myself. I don't know. I see the news right now, in Texas, and how they're making it harder, and they're shaming women that are going to clinics, and you're killing God's children and all this crap. And I'm just talk to me when that child of God is 7 years old and is confused and has all these issues with mental illness because of the unstable home environment. And I don't know, those are the kinds of things that I was thinking about. I always tell my friends, babies are people. That cute little baby is going to have a personality. And you need to remember that, right? They're cute when they're little, but then they grow up. I see kids as people. I have a 3-year-old stepdaughter right now, and I talk to her like I talk to these young people. Because it's just you're a human, you're a person, you have a mind that's absorbing everything right now. I'm going to speak to you like a person who understands language. And I think people see babies as a novelty. And especially in our community, well, the Latino community, right? My ex-husband is Dominican and first generation. And it's just the idea of having a baby would have brought in so much pride and this and that to his family and the legacy. And I was just I'm not having any of it. Oh, so you're choosing to be traditional? You don't pay any bills, you don't support me, but this is what you want to be traditional about. No.
Do you think that having access to an abortion allowed you to leave that marriage in the end? Or made it easier, at least?
I mean, the marriage was doomed anyway. I think it accelerated the marriage. It accelerated the divorce. I think that had I not had access to the abortion, or had I decided not to have the abortion, I would have two problems right now. I would still be married. I'd still be miserable. And I'd have a kid, right? And so I remember thinking, like, I need to be okay, because I can't sustain my present state of mind and wellness and be all these things for all of these people. Like, I can't be a principal, I can't be a wife, I can't be someone's mother and not be okay, right? Like, and it's not just a wife, it's a wife of an alcoholic, a wife of an addict, a wife of someone who's in complete denial. You ask my husband if he has my ex-husband if he has an alcohol problem, he'll look at you straight in the face and say, no, I'm Dominican, I drink. Okay. And what do you say to that, right? Like, if someone persistently says things like that to you, you know that they're in a state of mind where they're never going to come to terms with who they are or what their issues are. And so I don't know what would have happened. I don't know if I would have killed myself. Like, I don't know. Like, the pressure was, like, insurmountable. Is that the right word? Yes, insurmountable. It was beyond anything that I could handle. And my mom was in jail for 10 years. So it's like, I've been through some really rough crap. But I just would have prolonged the marriage, and somebody would have ended up hurt. Like, more hurt than whatever bullshit pain comes with divorce. And I mean that with all the respect that comes with being divorced, but it's like, come on, when there's no kids involved, and my divorce is pretty amicable, like, please, you're heartbroken, you cry a little bit, you separate your assets, you find new places to live, you stop being a part of the norms of that person, and that person stops being a part of your norms. But eventually time rids itself of that. Like, time doesn't get rid of a kid, right? Like, that kid is here to stay. And that and mental illness, and on his part, on my part, like, I was just like, no, I can't handle that, man. No. It's like, I'm wary of using the word mental illness for myself, but because I feel like I have control over my emotions, right? But I think that sometimes we go in and out of depression. But I definitely have issues with anxiety, and I just couldn't. I don't know what I don't know what would have pushed. I don't know what would have pushed me over the edge. I just don't. And if I didn't have access to an abortion, I think that just would have made me even more depressed. Like, man, I'm stuck. I mean, I even Googled, like, natural abortion. I'm embarrassed to say it, but, like, I was like, maybe I'll lose the kid between now and Saturday. Like, anyway, it's silly to me, but maybe we all do that. I mean, maybe we're all hoping that pregnancy will end in some magical way. And then I was like, whoa, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just going to go get some medical help.
Can you tell me how much it cost?
So my insurance covered it. I think I ended up paying a $15 copay. But I remember that my insurance didn't pay the clinic directly. They sent me a check for me to then pay Planned Parenthood. Yeah.
Do you remember how much it was?
I think it was like $1,093. But I think that was a combination of, No, it was 1,093 because my IUD was not connected to that. Now I'm like spreading the word of IUDs. It's like everyone I meet, I'm like, get an IUD, get an IUD, get an IUD. You're on the pill, get an IUD. It's bad. And I'm a principal, right? Like all my kids are Latinos. Do you know how many young people have graduated here pregnant? And you know what they tell me? Can I say it in Spanish? Soy tan mujer que puedo tener relaciones, puedo tener un hijo. Right? And I feel like that's what the moms say. Like, oh, you can have sex, you can have a kid, right? And they have that in their head. I'm like, no. You know, like, no. And then they come back with their babies and they look at me because I have the talk with them. And I say, like, and this is my talk. I say, you know, I cannot influence you in any way. I'm not in a position to do that. I'm not your mother. I do not know what your values are. But I need you to understand that you have options and that children are people and that baby will become a 5-year-old who will then become a 10-year-old who will then become a 15-year-old. Are you ready for that responsibility? And it's like 9 times out of 10, they'll look at me and they'll say, I've got to do it. And then it's like the pressure that these families put on these girls. And it's not the pressure of like, I'm mad at you, you need to, you know. No, it's because from the minute, you know, mommy or papi or tia, tío find out that this girl's pregnant, they're just like, okay, I'm mad at you, but you're pregnant, so I can't beat you. Or, okay, I'm mad at you, you need to go live over there for like 2 days, but come back to my house afterwards. And then once they come back, it's just like, oh, está esperando un niño, mi nieto, you know, and it's just like, oh my God, that's my firstborn kid, you know, like the boyfriends, you know, and then I see this young couple, they come back here, and you see that they're struggling, but they're too proud to admit it. Like they're too proud to say, you know, and I always find out the lowdown, right? Because what is a school but a big gossip hub of what's going on in young people's lives? And, you know, you find out that the baby daddy dropped out of school because he's working at a job. He's working at a bodega because he needs to buy diapers and formula, and he's living with his mom. And you find out that the girl is living with her mom, and they're still together. And you're just like, how the fuck do you make that work? You know, you're together and you have a kid, but you don't live together. And like, what is that? So anyway, we have a center here for babies. And it's just like, you see these girls and I'm just like, oh my God, really? You know, and the kids will ask me all the time, like, do you have kids? Do you want kids? And I'll say, I have you. I don't know, you know, and they're always so fast. Pero Miss, ¿por qué? You would be such a good mom. And I say, because con ustedes tengo. And I'm like, guys, it's a tremendous responsibility. Tremendous. And I feel like I respect the responsibility more so than other women and other men that are even my friends. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why I feel like it's such a grandiose role to be a mother or to be a father. Maybe it's because my mom was in jail for 10 years and I wasn't around her. And I just feel like you have to have your parents. Or maybe it's because I see these kids and the kids that don't have a solid family structure are lost and wayward. Like, I don't know what it is, but those things are so important to me, and more important to me than bringing a kid into the world where I'm not sure if those values or that respect for the role can actually be fulfilled.
Why do you want to share your story?
I think it's because of something I said earlier. I think, I don't know what the statistics are, but I'm assuming in my head that women who get abortions are generally younger, or perhaps I might be totally wrong, but the perception that we all have about women who get abortions are women who have lost their way or can't handle having a kid because they don't have the financial resources or the stability, home life stability to sustain a child. And I do, right? And I think the other stereotype that I have, that maybe others have, is that women who have abortions are promiscuous, or they have multiple partners, or it was a one-night stand, or it was a rape, or it was this, or it was that. And I want to share my story because I was married. I wasn't married for a day. I was with this man for 9 years of my life. I was married to the outside world. We were a happy couple, a stable home, financially stable. Like I said before, I make 6 figures. I could have handled it. But that's why I want to share my story, because I guess I haven't heard my story. Like, I've heard that other narrative, right? But I haven't heard women who have been married who decide to have an abortion because they themselves are not okay in the relationship, or their relationship is not okay in the marriage. I think the whole reason why I even reached out to you is because I feel like the narratives, the Latina narrative, I feel like our voices are so often not heard. And especially when it comes to abortion, because we are shackled by culture and rituals and traditions. And I don't care what Latino you are, we share so many shackles, right? Like, of religion or values or culture or expectations. And I guess I want it to be in the world that someone like me exists, a Latina that made it exists, that had an abortion in her marriage. I don't think that that's the norm. And so I think that's even like the reason why I'm sharing the stories, because of that.
How do you feel now that you shared your story?
I don't know if I shared everything. I talked for a long time. I don't know if I shared everything. I don't know if I'm missing something. I feel like I'm minimizing the experience a little bit. And I'm so nonchalant about it. I'm so cavalier about everything I'm saying. I know it. I hear it in my voice. But it was a monumental decision, and it was a monumental formative experience. So I feel there's so many words. I can't find a good one. I feel like a question mark. Because I don't know. I don't know if I shared enough. I don't know if I shared the right things. I don't know if I was being too biased. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe my ex-husband's side was completely different. Maybe he'll say that I was completely selfish and I was a mess and that this decision was totally mine and that, I was the reason why we broke up. But there's facts that you can't deny, right? Someone coming home every night drunk. Someone coming home at like 5, 6 in the morning every night. Someone that's not providing for the family, for the unit. Like, those are very concrete things that you can't deny. And I think for some people that might be reason enough to leave a relationship. And for me, it was reason enough to make a decision because, like I said, babies are not a novelty. Babies are children, and children need affection and attention and love and structure. And I don't know. So I don't know what a question mark, I think. Yeah.
This is Melissa, and thanks again for listening. You can continue to listen to our stories online through our website or by subscribing on iTunes or SoundCloud or your favorite podcast app. And if you rate and review our podcast on iTunes, it helps new listeners find us by boosting our iTunes ranking. Also, they inspire me and keep me going. And remember, the Abortion Diary needs your support. Help the Abortion Diary continue its work and share our stories by donating, and consider supporting us with a monthly gift. I'll be back next week with a new story. New stories are posted every Tuesday. Until then, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. Listen for us next week.